So here's one thing. This knife is pretty darn robust. Let me come in a little closer so you can get a shot of that. It's pretty darn robust, and I chose my words wisely there. When I say a knife is thick, typically what I really mean by that is it's too thick. It's really just bigger and thicker than I can handle, or more than is appropriate for the dimensions of the knife, the use of the knife. But when I say robust, it's actually a very choice word. What I mean by robust is it's a relatively thick for style blade, but appropriately so. So I say this blade is robust. It is not overly thick. It's not too thick. And I've been able to prove that to myself because I kind of wondered about it. Get this to focus. Kind of wondered about it with how broad it isn't. Okay, it's a little more slender. I kind of wondered if this would be too much to be slicey, but now that I've used it quite a bit, it doesn't have that typical V edge that's just so fat. It's got so much meat behind the spine or behind the edge. Those don't seem to do well, and those are usually too thick, right, overall. And if this had a different edge on it, it maybe would feel that way. But the fact that it has the type of grind that it does, where it's almost a little bit convexed towards the edge, it does slip through. It's really easy to strop up. It's been easy to sharpen now the one time I've had to. And it slips through cardboard and fabric and that sort of thing really well. So I'm quite happy with it. It is robust, and I did some light prying with it today. I had to pull some steaks out of something, and I've beat up on this thing really good now. Garrett, you did a great job because it is robust. It's a great EDC blade, and it doesn't really look worse for wear. I wasn't worried about snapping it at all, to be quite honest with you. So I probably wouldn't take a knife like this out in the woods to be my primary knife unless it was a day trip or a short trip. In the wintertime, I like to take more than one blade with me. Let's try to do this a smarter way. And I would be comfortable with this being one of the blades, and I would be comfortable doing smaller tasks like what I'm doing here. A little bit of fire prep, absolutely can handle this. It's a good, robust thickness. To be honest with you, he does a really good job with his steel, and I have used even a 1/16 thickness blade. I've batoned a lot harder stuff than that. I've seen the blades bent sideways and still pop back. And so this robust little blade here is absolutely going to be able to conquer the little things that I'm giving it. Let's say 1.5, 2-inch pieces of wood. It's going to handle that just fine. Now this may be a little bit smaller for some people, but remember, it's still got a full hand grip. I can get all of my fingers on there comfortably. It's not hard for me. It's going to be a little less broad than some other knives, but I would be very comfortable pairing this as my EDC on my side with something like this BearForestKnives. This is the simple variant that has the hybrid. It's kind of a multi-grind. This one has an excellent handle. It's a little bit broader than you're going to see on the GT3. Similar length, but still, even then, a little longer. Scandi grind, so it's great with woodworking. Also has this, like I said, it's a multi-grind. Has more of this shallow Scandi here. Reduction in thickness to some degree with tapering of a spine, just slightly. But this is something that I might use mostly for woodcraft, carving, that sort of thing. And then with the other tasks, I might use this blade. But it's a pretty comfortable blade, it's a pretty capable blade, and it's a very strong, robust edge. I would actually say this edge feels to me stronger in a lot of ways than a Scandi does. The Scandi just has less meat behind the edge, and this I might be more concerned about on certain tasks, whereas with this, I just feel comfortable plowing this into pretty much anything, and it's going to bounce back, or I'll be able to sharpen up and strop it really easily because, again, it is in the AEBL steel, which if you've never owned a steel in this quality, they are incredibly easy to sharpen up, holds a great edge. It is meant for knife steel, and I really like this steel particularly well in this EDC configuration. I've got this in, I think it's ADC RV if I remember right. This one is also phenomenal. And I don't want to undersell this as being somehow less than capable for camp crafts. That edge is actually sort of like a convex on my particular model here. And let me just flatten this out. It bites really nicely, rolls against the wood really well. I know it's not made for woodcraft exclusively, but it certainly doesn't seem hindered. And so if I just needed to make some feathers with it, it rolls feathers insanely well. I think it's that edge type. I'm just a little more familiar with it and comfortable with it. I've done a lot of practice with convex edges in the past, and they just roll nicely. It's easy to find the edge for feather sticks, whereas with a Scandi, you have to be a little more particular and a little more careful because it wants to bite in deeper, and that's not always ideal. Sometimes you just want to slice, cut, stab, poke into something, and you don't want something to always be grabbing for more material as you're pushing it through, especially wood. It depends what the task is. And so the Scandi BearForestKnives, there's several of them. They bite deep, they bite hard, and that's good. That's what I want with a Scandi. I get frustrated when Scandis don't do it. But this is more of a hybrid. It's, yeah, I'm going to say it's convexed, in my opinion, on the actual edge. And it's just not hard to make some pretty excellent fire sticks, or feather sticks rather, with this little guy. It's got an even smaller footprint, so it's more convenient to carry. Overall, I like that. Put that guy aside for a second. Let's try a couple harder cuts. I'm going to cut through this whole piece of wood. Yeah, I could chest lever through that thumb thickness piece there, no problem, actually. Yeah, it bites pretty good. It's not as good as a Scandi, but it bites very good. I'm actually surprised. Yeah, I'm actually surprised how well that bites. I know I can bow drill with something like this right off the bat. It'd be an easy bow drill knife. It's small enough in the hand that I don't feel unsafe. I don't feel like it's hard to wield with, you know, all this extra blade hanging out. That's one problem you have with longer and longer blades. You just got to be more careful because you'll hurt yourself. But this one, there's only so much blade, and you have a better blade to handle ratio. So just controllability is very, very good overall, even though the handle is not very broad. One thing I was curious about with this little blade is if it would want to roll in my hand a lot when I was making hard cuts. I would say generally not. It's mostly staying put. Yeah, I just really don't feel like it wants to roll. It is a very round handle, and I like that about it. I like that it's not just thin, flat scales. That's just not my preference in any knife, really, unless it's purely a Skinner, actually. Yeah, for whatever reason, it just doesn't really roll in the hand. Maybe it's because you can get that pinky on there and keep it from wanting to twist. Because it's a thicker stock thickness, another thing that's kind of nice is when I reinforce a cut and I get my thumb in there, I can do cuts like that, really hard pressure. I've got all three, I have 4 fingers here, not that great at counting apparently. I can get all 4 fingers on the handle. I can get my thumb on here and really press into it, and it doesn't hurt my finger. If it was a really thin blade profile, it'd still be cool, but it would probably be aggressive against your thumb when you're pressing into something. So when it comes to work, those of us in the trades and doing things like that where you've got to actually beat up on a tool and you have to use it hard, and you will have to actually resharpen your knife almost every other day or hone the edge, something like that. I think this is something you could pocket pretty well, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm going to do this for a month minimum. I'm going to be pocket carrying this. You'd be able to put this away. You can grab it really easy. Excellent sheath, you know. And I don't think you're going to freak people out. It's not a big knife. Something I think everybody could appreciate is a good spear point type. I like a center line. If you can see that there, get the light on it. I like a center line point, right to the middle. You could do bow drills with it. You can carve with it. It's really natural in the hand. Now that I've done some skinning with it for a couple critters, it is really natural. I can poke into a gut cavity without going too far. Sometimes clip points can go a little far. It depends how thin they are and how good your skill is. But just the general purpose utility kind of edge to this still worked well for skinning out critters and getting into the gut cavity, slipping through that first piece of meat, just the skin, the outer skin, without going too deep, and it doesn't hook back to the point where I'm going to grab an intestine on the way across. Yet when I was cutting through a rib cage with this, it just sliced right through. So it kind of does do the best of both worlds, and of course I think that Bear Carta looks really good. Very cool handles. I particularly like this version myself. It's just very unique, not like anything else that I own. The sun is going down really quick. I only have a couple minutes, so I'm not going to film all this, but for this squirrel, I'm going to go ahead and process it one more time with the BFK GT3. Really starting to enjoy this. The last few squirrels that I've done with this, and small game in general, the tip has become obviously a superior tip. So if I can bring it in a little closer, let's see, there it is. The tip does a really nice job of getting inside the gut pack and not going too deep. It is, put my hand behind this. It is thick enough, but not overly thick. And this is exactly what Garrett told me, is he didn't think it was too thick. It's just about the right thickness, even though it is kind of it's not a super broad knife. But I would say thickness-wise, this hasn't inhibited me. It's because of the grind style here, but it really slips in and cuts through the gut cavity just fine, stays away from the organs. Because it's got that center line tip, I kind of know how to work with it. It feels a little bushcrafty, so I'm just familiar with that feel. And it's robust enough I can cut these hands off actually without even worrying too much about getting it exactly on the ligament. I can cut through a little bit of thin bone just fine with this. Not recommended, but I can do it. All right, so that took me about 5 minutes. I'm definitely getting faster with this. Got this little hide. That guy, it's a really soft hide. He hasn't been in many scraps. Doesn't appear to have many bite marks in him or anything like that. Got just about all the meat that a person can salvage from a red squirrel. And the blade did a really good job. It's delicate in hand. I can be kind of precise with it and a little bit more exact than I can with a bigger blade. I can choke up on it. And I can actually get in, like when I'm cutting the sleeves on the squirrel's arms. This is such a small squirrel, you know. That tip really does a great job. And the profile of the blade isn't so broad that I kind of struggle to weasel it into spots. It just fits really well. So actually, I'm going to say this is a blade that I like for squirrels and small game. I actually prefer this over some of my bigger, broader blades, which I guess that's a surprise to me. I didn't think I would. As I said, I've been EDCing this for quite a while, and here's how I carry it. Front pocket carry most of the time. I guess there's one pair of pants where I might actually wear it up here inside the waistband a little bit, but most of the time I actually prefer to wear it here, and if it's in the waistband, it's actually right here. It's my pistol, and that I don't want them to interfere. Anyways, the handle does stick out. Yep, it's a little longer handle. Remember the proportions of this blade. Technically the blade is shorter than the handle is. And so let me step over here. I know that some people are going to worry that this is going to stick out too far. What I did is put it on an ulti clip, and there's multiple kinds of ulti clips, and I'm not deep carry on the ulti clip. This is the smallest ulti-clip. I actually would have gone up to the next size. This one isn't my favorite ulti-clip of all of them. It's actually extra tight on pants. But once it's on here for the day, it's not going anywhere. It's not going to slide around. And this doesn't interfere when I sit. It's actually fairly, I don't know, unobtrusive. Doesn't get in the way. It's easy for me to grab. I've had to break in the sheath just a touch, which is normal with any well-produced sheath. Remember that. Just broken in a little bit, and now it slips in and out perfectly. There's no shavings of Kydex on there. I don't miss that hole for it. It seems to go in and out really well, very naturally. And in some ways, it might actually be faster than a pocket knife, like a folding pocket knife. I would say the thumb detent, I'm going to show you this in a second, the thumb detent here is particularly well done for this style of blade. And here's just going to slip back in. Yeah, well done on the actual sheath. Again, it doesn't come with the ulti-clip. That was my decision to carry that because I want to carry this every day in this position. And I really like fixed blades for EDC. Does pop out. People do ask about it, you know. It's cool. It's a unique knife handle. So people ask, you know, where'd you get your, let me move over here. People ask, where'd you get it? What kind of brand is that? I'll be honest with you, I think BearForestKnives has the coolest logo out of any brand. And people ask all the time because of that. They're like, man, that thing is wicked. And it is. It's really cool. As far as application goes for a blade like this, let's talk about application. Let's briefly talk about application for a blade like this. Now, for me, I was naturally more inclined towards something that's like an EDC, a blade of this robustness that has the AEBL steel. I can use this every day. I can hone it quickly. I can beat it up and not feel bad. It does stick out. So, you know, it's a little different than some of the other real boring blades that I've carried in the past. Like, it's actually got some style to it. The Bearcarta blue is just awesome. The pins themselves are really well done. Like, fit and finish is excellent. So it kind of has the custom aspect. And some people, they get a custom knife and they're like, oh, I can't beat that thing up. I got to keep it nice and pretty all the time. I don't really feel that way. I will actually use them because I'm going to only live once. And if I paid for something, it's my money. I'm not going to just keep it pretty forever, and I'm probably not going to resell it. I'm going to use the heck out of it. So for me, this is a user, not a junk knife, not like a shop knife where I basically eviscerate the edge and I don't care if I cut into a nail or whatever. Like, I'll be minorly nice to this knife. So I don't want to destroy the edge. I still use it for some skinning, some outdoor craft, a little bit of bushcraft stuff because I can use it with this edge style. So for me, I think it's a EDC blade. That's for me. For some people, it would go beyond that. They might see this as a defensive tool. And quite frankly, if this is the knife I have, then it is a defensive tool if I need it that way. Otherwise, I'm just looking at it as a utility kind of blade, like a more robust and useful utility blade that has a little more flair to it. But I think a lot of guys would actually see at least that little bit of a hilt or a finger stop and realize, man, that pen style knife, it can do a lot of the basic things, but it also can penetrate. And when you have a longer handle, I'm a big guy, I'm 6'5", got XL size hands, and I can get all my fingers on here, all 4 and 5th on the pommel end, or I can carry it this way. You could plunge really deep with this because of the style, the thickness, the robustness. You get a lot of force behind it. So if you needed this in a defensive kind of scenario, it would not let you down. I think it's a very good blade. It's not going to have the biggest finger guard, obviously, so you'd have to weigh that option out. But for me, whatever knife I have in my pocket, if I have to use it for that, then yeah, I guess it's a defensive blade. But normally I'm not thinking that way at all. I'm thinking this is a useful blade for everyday carry. It sticks out a little more than a boring, bland blade does. You know, this isn't just another Mora that has a pair of injected handles or something. This was American made. Right now, that's awesome. I'm loving seeing more people get into American made products. It's really good steel. It's appropriate steel for EDC use especially. And it has an excellent sheath. So I feel like it replaces some of the blades where I have to go get an extra sheath. Maybe it's a good blade, but it doesn't have a good sheath. Or maybe it's got a great sheath, but it's a sucky blade. This just combines the things all together at once. And I think it probably comes in at a cheaper price point than a lot of other customs do. So well done to Garrett over there. I like the GT3. It's very unique. I'm gonna keep carrying it, actually. After this month is over, I'm gonna keep carrying it. I think it's definitely my style for a side pocket knife. If the handle was a little shorter, I would still like it. I don't have to have that length of handle. It's not 100% necessary, but it has come in useful. When I've only had this blade on me, I've been out in the woods and I'm carving or doing a little bit of firecraft or something. Having the extra bit of handle does make it more comfortable. And it's not that it's so broad and big and heavy that I don't want to carry it. Because if it was really big and broad and heavy and even thicker, no, I probably wouldn't want to carry it all the time. Just the fact that it has the stats that it does, the size, overall length, it's pretty easy for me just to stow that in the pocket. Doesn't freak people out. If I do pull it out, they mostly just think it's really cool. So that's my take and rambling for you guys. I'm not a knife expert the way that Garrett is. Garrett is an expert. Go to his website and check out some of his other blades. If this one is not your cup of tea, he's got a lot more. I just checked out the website the other day, and there's a few that are up for sale. They don't usually last very long, but if you like this one, there's a couple left as of right now as I'm filming this video. Hopefully when it gets produced, they're still there. You can go check it out. It's a good deal, and this would be one of my highest recommendations for Garrett's knives. If you're looking for something more bushcrafty, check out his simple knife. I've tried out multiple simple knives, and I like that quite a bit. I think it's one of the best customs you can get. Fit and finish is phenomenal, and the steel is always appropriately tempered. Kydex sheaths are second to none. And I think you're gonna be happy with anything you get over there, but he's got a lot of really unique designs, things that I don't even know what they're best for, but they're just cool. And then many functional blades like the one I showed you here today. I have talked so much in the last 2 weeks. I can't talk anymore. I can't even finish the video. I just don't even know what to say anymore. I like the blade. How about that? I like it a lot. And you should subscribe and watch some of these.